Here's something that'll probably annoy you. There's a lubricant compound that's been used in fighter jets, NASA spacecraft, and deep-sea drilling equipment for over 60 years. It reduces metal-on-metal friction better than most oils under extreme pressure. And you can buy it right now for about $2 at your local auto parts store. Most drivers have never heard of it. Most mechanics don't recommend it. And almost nobody talks about what it actually does inside your engine. And it stayed there under extraordinary pressure. By the 1960s, MoS2 coatings were being used on missile components, submarine parts, and spacecraft. NASA used molybdenum-based lubricants extensively in environments where liquid oil would either freeze solid or evaporate in a vacuum. MoS2 kept moving parts moving. The automotive application came later, and it came quietly, not through advertising campaigns, but through mechanics and engineers who understood tribology. That's the science of friction, wear, and lubrication. And in tribology circles, MoS2 is not exotic. It's just correct. So what actually happens inside your engine when MoS2 is present? To understand it, you need a quick picture of what engine wear really looks like. Your engine is full of metal surfaces moving against each other. Pistons, rings, cylinder walls, cam lobes, bearings. Even with good oil, those surfaces aren't perfectly smooth. At a microscopic level, they're jagged. They have peaks and valleys, what engineers call asperities. When metal peaks from one surface grind against metal peaks from another, you get friction, you get heat. And over millions of cycles, you get wear. Motor oil does an incredible job of separating those surfaces with a thin, fluid film. But there are two moments where that film breaks down. Cold starts before oil has fully circulated, and extreme load situations, like towing heavy or running hard in high heat. That's where MoS2 does something oil can't. Molybdenum disulfide has what's called a lamellar structure. Picture a deck of cards. The molecules stack in flat, parallel layers that slide easily against each other. When MoS2 particles reach metal surfaces under pressure, they don't just sit on top, they actually embed into the microscopic texture of the metal. They fill in those peaks and valleys. They create a slick, bonded layer that dramatically reduces the contact friction between surfaces.
And here's the key thing. That layer stays, even when the oil film is compromised. It's not dissolved by oil. It doesn't wash off under normal operating conditions. It just sits there, doing its job. The technical term is boundary lubrication, and MoS2 is one of the best boundary lubricants ever identified. Think of it this way. Your motor oil is the bodyguard keeping trouble away from the door. MoS2 is the armor on the door itself. They work best together. Now, here's where a lot of people go sideways on this topic. The first mistake is lumping MoS2 in with the long, sad history of engine additives that were basically snake oil. If you grew up watching infomercials for miracle fuel treatments and mysterious engine restorers, you're right to be skeptical. A lot of that stuff was, and still is, either inert or outright damaging. But MoS2 isn't the same category. The mechanism is real, documented, and testable. It's not a marketing story. It's a physical-chemical interaction that you can observe under a microscope. Tribologists don't debate whether it works. They debate the optimal particle size, concentration, and application method. The second mistake is thinking your full synthetic oil already covers this. Premium synthetics are excellent, and many of them do contain molybdenum compounds as part of their additive packages. Mobil 1 and several other top-tier oils have used moly-based friction modifiers for years. But the concentration is generally modest, optimized for broad compatibility across many engine types. Using a dedicated MoS2 supplement in the right amount, in the right application, can push that boundary lubrication layer further than a stock oil formulation will. The third mistake? Using too much. More on that in a minute. Let's talk about what's actually at stake here, because this isn't just theory. The average engine rebuild, if you ever get to that point, costs somewhere between $2,500 and $6,000 for a typical gasoline engine. More for diesel, more for European vehicles. That number doesn't include labor time, rental cars, or the general misery of being without your truck for 3 weeks. Most of that wear is cumulative. It doesn't happen in one bad moment. It happens in 10,000 cold starts where oil took 4 to 8 seconds to fully circulate. It happens in 100 towing sessions where the load pushed bearing surfaces into metal-on-metal contact. It happens slowly, invisibly, and without warning. There's a reason some diesel trucks accumulate 400,000 to 600,000 miles on original engines. It's not just luck. It's maintenance discipline, and in many cases, it's attention to lubricant quality that most passenger car owners never think about. Reducing friction even by a small percentage consistently over time compounds. Just like interest in a savings account, except it's saving your engine instead of your wallet. So, how do you actually use this? There are a few ways MoS2 enters your engine. The simplest is as an oil additive, a concentrated MoS2 suspension you add to your crankcase at oil change time. Products like Liqui-Moly MoS2 engine additive or loose MoS2 powder blended into oil are widely available and relatively inexpensive. We're talking $5 to $15 in most cases for enough to treat one oil change. The general guidance from manufacturers is to use roughly 1 ounce of additive per quart of oil capacity, but always read the specific product directions because concentration matters. Too little and you get minimal benefit. Too much and you can actually interfere with oil filter performance or, in the case of certain high particle size products, cause issues in tight engine tolerances. For best results, add it at oil change time, not mid-cycle, so it circulates through fresh oil from the start. MoS2 also appears in assembly lube, a thick paste used by engine builders when installing new camshafts, lifters, and bearings. If you're ever rebuilding or replacing major engine components, MoS2-based assembly lube is something professional engine builders commonly reach for. It protects those critical parts during the first few minutes of startup before oil pressure is established. The engines that commonly benefit most are high-mileage vehicles, older engines with slightly more clearance between worn components, diesels operating under sustained load, and any engine that sees frequent cold starts in cold climates. You don't have to look far to find real-world context for this. In the heavy truck world, over-the-road semis, pickup trucks used for work, there's a well-established culture of taking engine longevity very seriously. Operators who treat these trucks as income-producing assets do their homework on lubricants. Molybdenum-based additives have been part of many fleet maintenance programs for decades, not because a commercial told them to, but because experienced mechanics saw the difference in engine condition at high-mileage teardowns. Cold climate mechanics in places like Minnesota, Montana, and Canada have long appreciated boundary lubricants precisely because cold starts are so brutal. At -20 degrees Fahrenheit, even a good synthetic oil is sluggish. An engine protected by a bonded MoS2 layer on its cylinder walls and bearing surfaces survives those first cold seconds much better. In motorsports, particularly in classes where engine rebuilds are tightly regulated and you need every component to last as long as possible, MoS2 assembly paste is standard practice. It's not exotic. It's just what people who are serious about engine longevity do. Now, and this part matters, here's when you should not use MoS2 oil additives.
First, motorcycles and some performance cars with wet clutch systems. Many motorcycle engines share oil between the engine and the transmission clutch. MoS2 is a friction reducer, which is exactly what you don't want on clutch plates. It can cause clutch slipping and real damage. This is not a minor caveat.
If your vehicle has a wet clutch, do not add MoS2 to the engine oil without confirming it's clutch safe. Second, brand new engines. A new engine needs a break-in period where metal surfaces seat against each other properly. Adding aggressive friction modifiers too early can interfere with that process. Most engine builders recommend running a conventional or mild oil for the first few thousand miles on a fresh engine before adding any supplemental lubricants. Third, don't overconcentrate. MoS2 particles, especially in coarser formulations, can theoretically accumulate in oil filters over time. Use it as directed. More is not better. Fourth, if your engine is already burning oil or showing signs of serious wear, MoS2 is not a repair. It's a preventive tool. It's not going to seal worn piston rings or fix damaged bearings. Manage your expectations. And always, always stick with your manufacturer's recommended oil viscosity. MoS2 is an additive, not a replacement for a proper base oil. Here's what I think is the actually interesting thing about all of this. MoS2 isn't obscure because it doesn't work. It's obscure in consumer automotive culture because the problems it prevents are invisible. You don't feel the wear it stops. You don't see the metal it saves. You only ever see the consequence, tens of thousands of miles later, when something fails. We live in a culture where car maintenance is a cost to minimize, not an investment to optimize. And that's a reasonable way to think about a depreciating asset until it's not. Until you're looking at a $4,000 repair bill on a truck you need for work, or watching your timing chain rattle on a cold morning because years of marginal lubrication finally caught up. The broader point is this. The chemistry of engine protection is much more interesting and much more actionable than most drivers realize. And the gap between what's commonly known and what's technically available is wider than it should be. MoS2 doesn't need to be a revelation. It just needs to be on your radar. If you drive a high-mileage vehicle, work your truck hard, or just want to get serious about engine longevity, this is worth looking into. Pick up a bottle of Liquimoly MoS2 additive, or do some research on the specific formulation that fits your engine. It costs less than a fast food lunch, and the chemistry is real. If you found this useful, subscribe. We go deep on the stuff that actually matters for keeping your vehicles running. Next video, we're breaking down exactly why oil viscosity ratings mean something completely different under cold start conditions than the label implies. That one will change how you choose oil for good. Don't miss it.